What's up, dudes? Welcome back to another episode of Rhomas Men's Team. Pretty simple. We are a group of guys helping each other make progress towards each other's goals. If you're new to the channel, awesome and welcome. If you want to help support the channel and join our pro team, head over to rhomasteam.com/pro, where you can contribute to us on a donation basis. We also give you access to exclusive content, mastermind groups, etc., etc. So anyway, hope you enjoy this episode, and we'll see you on the team. Mr. Ray, what is up, my friend?
Hello, Wes. Life is good up here in Canada. How about where you are?
Southern California, always good, my friend.
Right on. How was the weekend?
The weekend was good, man. I spent a decent amount of time reading relationship stuff. Had a therapy session with my on Friday and gave me some pretty interesting topics to read about. One thing I was not surprised with, but I'll give you the topic. So basically, we had a meeting, and one of the discussions was like, hey, what should be the protocol for voicing anything that's not an emergency, which I thought was really interesting. Because a lot of people, what they want to do is they want to say, oh, I feel a certain way right now, so I want to talk about it right now. The problem is on the other side for the partner, that can feel like you're kind of walking around a landmine situation where you don't know at any given time there could be a problem. And it's not the time, it could not be the time and space to be able to solve that problem. So what the therapist recommended, and I really, really appreciated it, to the point where I slipped her a 20 after the meeting.
You're kidding.
No, I was just kidding.
Can I do that?
Yeah. When you have a problem in a relationship, it's best to have a predefined time, so in the calendar, where it's a relationship check-in. At least per this therapist, which I thought was amazing. And the objective is to write down any concerns, and then you bring them up during the relationship check-in, and there's a protocol to do that. So I thought that was absolutely outstanding. Like, I am fully on board, because oftentimes if there's not that sort of protocol, it can just get hectic. You can come in on a Tuesday at 8 p.m. after work, and then you have 3 or 4 items that you weren't aware of that you now have to solve. And then it can turn into an argument. You're low on your energy stores and all that kind of stuff. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think that's wonderful. I just got off the phone with a friend of mine who's going through a challenge right now. Both him and I are kind of like taking a step back from our marriages, not divorce, not separation, but just kind of like creating some breathing room in our marriages. And this is something we faced, right? Because a breathing room requires like a bit of separation, a bit of independence, a bit of to create sanity in an otherwise toxic relationship. Good morning, Larry. And,
good morning, gentlemen.
But when you're in a relationship, and probably a toxic relationship, you feel like you can yell at the person over anything, or you have to yell at the person over anything, or perhaps all the resentment and contempt and drama causes you to yell about the smallest thing, right? Because you're not yelling about the fridge door being left open or the milk being left on the counter, right? What you're yelling about is all that baked in contempt and resentment. So I love the idea of, and I mean, I don't know how this is going to be received by your intimate partner, but if they voice something to you that's not an emergency, I think we should probably have a script as well, right? Of this does not sound like an emergency. I mean, it's just pouring gas on the fire the way I'm about to phrase it, but this does not sound like an emergency. Can I suggest Wednesday at 4 p.m. to discuss this or something?
Well, that's what I was worried about.
Larry's like dead man walking.
Yeah, no. So that's what I was worried about. And the therapist basically I mean, you could use a little more, savvy positioning than that. But it's basically along those lines. And so, for instance, hey, I totally hear you. I completely understand. My energy stores are at like 1 right now. Is there any chance we could revisit this during our relationship check-in, on Tuesday, normally scheduled, something like that? This is what the relationship therapist recommended. And apparently there's several books that recommend the same thing. Larry, what are your thoughts?
Well, just because some people say it a lot doesn't mean it's the truth. One of the challenges in relationships is not being able to be heard. And whether or not it's timely, whether or not it's been pre-established that this is the time, so hold all your emotion until that period, I think that's a disaster waiting to happen. I think you have to have an IQ over 140 to be able to both agree to something like that and then have it work. Because what's going to happen by the time you get to the period where you discuss, there's so much animosity, there's so much issues that have been built up. The problem with the brain, remember, it can't stand a vacuum. So if I can't talk to you about what's going on, I'll make it up in my mind. And by the time we get together, I've already formed my conclusion. So now I want to hear what you have to say about that, is basically what can take place. So I just want to throw that out to kind of get things rolling a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. So, and I see both sides for sure.
Wes, may I?
Yeah, please.
Counterpoint. Okay, so Larry, so rather than, okay, I'm shutting you down. We can talk about this at 4 p.m.
Yeah, be an adult.
Wes, what do you think of like let's say you listen to her, but like ideally you could listen to her and it would be like, water rolling off a duck's back, right? Like be like the water, some kind of like very Buddhist thing where like you don't get activated by it. I think that's right. Like what I'm hearing from you, Wes, is that when someone comes at you, or how I experience this myself, truly, is when someone comes at me with something that isn't an emergency, I get activated and I get defensive and I'm like, yeah, well, you never, X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
Right. So to combine Larry's wisdom there, is there a way that maybe we can let them be heard but also not be activated by it and like schedule a time to really pick it apart later? Go ahead, Larry. Or go ahead, Wes.
Great question. Because I love the water on a duck's back sort of thing. It's like, yes, in a perfect world, like you're saying, Larry, in some sort of vacuum, could I just listen to the words and just let them flow around me and be like, okay, they're just words. That's fine. She's questioning my entire character, my entire. Yeah. No, so I think I would imagine. Well, so what the therapist also recommended was that in the meantime, you write out your own thoughts, basically suggesting that there's a certain amount of your own homework and emotional development that you have to do, and that contrary to what the general public believes, or at least from the therapist position, is that your partner is not just an open canvas at all times so that you can throw whatever color paint you want on that person. And you are responsible for managing your own emotions to a certain degree. Now, I do think it depends on the partner on the other side. But if the partner has a tendency just to say, like, it's open season, literally no matter the time. So, for instance, we talked about sleep, and she established ground rules. No talking about anything that's serious unless it's an emergency after 9 p.m. She said because just the brain is just not physiologically set up to be able to handle, like it's currently in its shutdown mode to go to sleep. So this was her opinion. Larry, I'd love to get your thoughts on it. I happen to, because you guys know I crave structure. I'm a huge fan of this. And I could tell you anything else except for like a structured path like this is not workable for me. Like I can for sure try to become that Buddhist monk, if somebody throws this kind of stuff at me at 10 p.m. at night. But I now have decades worth of experience of like, and I'm giving it a fair shot. It's just not workable for me. It's not possible.
Structuring a relationship is like structuring water. It's got to have.
You can put it in a cup. Exactly.
It's got to have parameters, and I haven't
Yeah.
heard any parameters. I haven't heard what we've established as what we want out of the relationship together and how we want to be together in the relationship. Because if we haven't established any parameters, then it's what Wes wants, or it's what his wants, or it's what Larry wants, or what his wife wants.
At any
And
given
that's
moment,
where,
right?
that's
like,
where it
which
all
is
gets
subject to change too, right? Just whatever you want in that moment. Yeah.
Yeah, and if it is not in alignment, it's no different than establishing a sense of purpose and vision in a company. What are we arguing about if it isn't in alignment with what we're attempting to accomplish and the values that we've chosen to live by? Then perhaps we shouldn't be in the same company together. Because what we did is we started out that said we sell tires, and now all of a sudden you want to clean teeth. So, I get that, but didn't we agree that this is how we wanted to attempt to grow together? And most couples don't start out that way. They go to counseling because there was an issue. Mm-hmm. They don't go to counseling to say, let's build this amazing opportunity to have a relationship of a lifetime. Then when we get into our petty differences, the question becomes, it's going to get us where we want to go. No, but I'm feeling a little not heard right now. Okay, what's going on? Because trust me, the moment I have to wait, they have to wait. You've just said, let's be real clear, you're number two.
Yeah.
And my job's one, or I'm one, or watching the game's one, or whatever priority doesn't allow you to listen, because that's where it starts to build into this thing that there's no way we can handle it and manage it. Mm. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. All of these concepts that when I get home, I want to go to my cave. I just want to have my beer and I don't want to talk. Well, that's great if you're a Neanderthal. But if you want to have any kind of a relationship with another human being, you need to be what's called available. But then make it relative to what both of you want in the relationship. Most people say, I do. They don't know how to raise kids. They haven't shared how to raise kids, what kind of home they want, how they want to spend money, et cetera, et cetera. So I just throw that in.
Oh, Larry, I completely agree with you. And just so everybody knows, that's the exercise we're working on, is developing goals and the developing goals value system. This relationship therapist is a Gottman specialist as well as an ACT specialist and CBT. We tried specifically to kind of look for that trifecta in there. And then she's giving us a protocol to be able to navigate conflict, as well as kind of like a script within the conflict domain. And then also, from my understanding, and Larry, this is not to say you're wrong. Like, I want to know everybody's opinion on this. Brene Brown gave an interview to Tim Ferriss, and they were talking about the same thing, like relationship check-in. Now, Larry, what happens though if, well, first of all, what percentage of people would you say are equipped as an adult to be able to manage their emotions in a healthy way?
I'd say 100% are equipped unless they've had some kind of lack of oxygen at birth. Mm-hmm. But I'd say that as far as awareness and having the tools, probably less than 5%.
Okay, so 95%. So 95% do not have the tools. So is there an argument to saying that the therapist is giving us tools to the 95%, the probability of landing in the field that has, in the category that has the tools, is very close to zero? Is there a possibility the therapist is saying, hey, here are the tools and here's what we have found? Or are you just saying they're the wrong tools?
No. I was saying those because you didn't start out with the fact that you first did the most important step, and then that's make sure that we can agree that this is what we'd ultimately like this amazing relationship to be, outside of just the lust and the infatuation stage. We'd really like to see what it would be like not to flip a coin, because right now, statistically, you're flipping a coin and when you get married.
Yep.
That half of them are going to fail. And I'm just saying that the same businesses are similar, except it's a larger percentage it's going to fail. But 50% are only the ones that chose to leave each other. There's probably another 40% making it up to 90. They're living a life of meaninglessness that are just not transparent. They're not talking anymore. He does his thing, she does hers. They raise the kids, and then they the classic example of staying together for the wrong reasons is, did I share this with you where the couple in their, he was 95 and she was 90?
No.
And were married for 75 years and went to a divorce attorney?
No.
And the divorce attorney goes, I have no problem divorcing you two, but you mind if I ask you a question? And they go, no. You've been married 75 years? Yes. Well, why do you want to get a divorce? Well, we had to wait till the children died.
Whoa.
Not turn 18, but like die of natural causes.
Let's stay together for all the wrong reasons.
Right.
Because we're doing it for someone other than the two of us. And we raise children thinking this is love, this is what a relationship's like. And then without knowing it, it gets pre-programmed and they go out and find someone similar. Because it's comfortable. And we love comfort we appall any kind of conflict. That's why guys, particularly, nothing's wrong. Everything's good. Do you mind if we talk? Hey, is it an emergency? Are you bleed? I don't see any blood.
This sounds like a you problem.
Hey dudes, sorry for the interruption here. Just wanted to let you know, if you want to join our pro team, go to romasteam.com/pro. You can help support the channel. You will also get access to exclusive content, masterminds, one-on-one sessions, etc. All right, back to the episode.
Right. If you would just be happy, we'd have a great relationship. So you're dealing with something, you talk about Renee Brown and who's all about empathy and how many people get it wrong. And she's just really making sure that we have some autonomy, that we are unique within ourselves. And then what we do is we try to bring our independence to another human being so that we can be greater than self. And not to be codependent, not that, God, I just needed sex and you're willing to give it to me, or I just needed money and you happen to have it, or I just needed to feel good about myself and you make me feel that way. Those are some of the reasons why things fall apart, because we're getting our needs met instead of fulfilling and adding from the vibrancy of our own life and our own growth, whether it be a good day or a bad day, to the relationship, which it sounds, Wes, like you want to do, which is not surprising that you're going into this from a methodical perspective, but you're also all heart. And so, you're bringing both of them to the party, which sounds like, you have a greater chance of longevity in the relationship until the two of you decide, hey, we're just not enjoying each other's company anymore, even though we both have the same goals. Well, that's something else.
Yeah, well, and I'm just reading the comments over here on the side. So Ray, let me throw the ball to you as well. Tough
act to follow, the West. Very tough act to follow. This guy. Yeah.
Well, so for instance, like the 95.5, right? Like if we delve deeper into there, most people, in my opinion, I agree with Larry. 95% of people do not have the tools. So there's some sort of gap there where if they don't have the tools and are not committed to onboarding the tools, does that mean that 95% of people should not be married? Or does it mean that, hey, we should get married and we should commit to onboarding the tools, such as this tool that we put on the table today, or maybe other tools if that doesn't work? But it feels to me like just having open season when you don't have the tools is probably also, it seems like it's setting us up for some sort of disaster as well. To the point where if you have, like, almost, isn't that what a child is? Like a child, we tell them, hey, don't throw a tantrum over this thing, right? Like we don't tell a child your feelings are valid. Like everybody knows, okay, not questioning whether or not you feel that. It's obvious that because you just punched a hole through the drywall, it's obvious that you feel that way. Therefore, it seems valid that you feel this way. Or not, you're not lying about the emotion. But the reason that you punched a hole through the drywall is probably distorted, right? Given the fact that you did it to the drywall in the other room last week, there's probably something there. Yeah. So we need to give this person a tool to work through their emotions. I mean, this is, in my opinion, is what cognitive behavioral therapy is all about, right? Like the 10 cognitive distortions, you're thinking about this incorrectly.
Absolutely. And how many classes do we all remember having in school about relationships? How many do we remember?
Right, 0.
And how many parents have come to schools and said, what are you doing trying to raise my children? Mm-hmm. I'll teach them relationships.
Right.
And, and that can come from the right spot. It's something that it's pretty simple to have a wonderful relationship. And that is to be concerned and care about the growth of the person you're with. Mm-hmm. If you don't care and you don't have the growth, it's back to Roosevelt's statement, people don't care what you know until they know that you care. And that to me is one of the fundamental laws of a relationship. If how are we showing we care? Because I chose to meet with you, and then Wes, this is totally out of context with what you said, so please don't misunderstand.
Yeah, no. Larry, I don't have feelings. I can't get offended. So go ahead, buddy.
Of course I care. I saved Thursday evening at 5:05 p.m. to be available for you to download now what a miserable week you had. There's preconceived notions that come into play. And one of the elements that's most difficult for all of us is we're the only ones looking out of our eyes. And all we see, because of how our brain operates, is the movie we've created for ourselves. We can't see anything else until we create a new movie. Which is what you're doing in your relationship, Wes, is you guys are establishing a future of, let's communicate this way. This sounds like this is what we want ultimately in our relationship. Mm-hmm. We seem to be a little off on how we both think about money. Rather than talking about the best way with money is, why don't we find out what it is that we'd like our money to do? And then again, we're pulling vision back into it. Now we have a double.
Yeah.
He has just cloned himself. I love it. That is an art within itself. So
that's right.
Anyway.
So Ray, what are your thoughts, my friend? I don't know if you're still on here. Ray, can you hear us? Okay. Ray, just chime in whenever you have a chance. So Larry, what happens, for instance, in your opinion, is there a limit to the volume? And by the way, I'm not saying this is my personal relationship, but I know it's been a pattern that I've been in the past. What is there a limit to the volume or the frequency of complaints? So, let's say if we were objective, right? Like, hey, this seems like a you thing, not a me thing. And we're now going on 15 days straight of complaining, but because it's an open season, anytime I'm in the room, then I'm here for you. Let me listen. It's like, at what point, like what would be I mean that sincerely. And I think a lot of guys, and in fact, guys that I know right now have gone through what they would tell me is that same exact thing. And what would you do there? What's the protocol?
Well, first off, I would ask, why is there complaining? That would be my first question. Mm-hmm. Why is it that when we get together, all we do is talk about what's not working? So that's flawed right there.
Totally agree. Completely agree.
Generally, we're complaining about a lack of transparency. So when there is an issue, it's like it's washed over as, this isn't important, so I'm not going to share it right now. I told her I loved her, and she said, you too. And I didn't get the feeling that it was really genuine. So now I'm pissed. And she says, is there something wrong? You sounded a little quiet at dinner. Nope. because we're embarrassed to say we got upset about, and we didn't want to share it because we didn't think it was that big of a deal. And yet it's a big deal inside of us.
Mm.
And that is probably one of the most difficult things, but easy to overcome, is what does it mean to be transparent? So there's where blame comes from. There's where I have to listen to the complaints. I think you used the term complaints.
Mm-hmm.
I would go, what's not happening? You seem to be upset with, instead of every time we talk, you're complaining. Mm-hmm. Stay away from generalizations. Stay away from forever, like starting it with every time.
Oh, yeah.
We want to create defensiveness in somebody, say, well, you're always.
Yep. But
that's our own defense mechanism that's coming across like that. So it's really kind of basic, and it's if am I ready to have a relationship to begin with? And what does that mean? Well, how's my relationship with myself? I mean, if we're really going to get down to the core of this, if I can't enjoy being with myself, now I'm going to bring another person in and think it's going to work.
Right. Yeah. Well, so let's go down that road. And Ray, something happened with the disconnection. I'm re-inviting you, bud. So if we go down that road, what would make somebody qualified to be in a relationship?
Who are you asking?
Actually, yeah, Ray, let me switch this over to you. If you
yes,
have
sir.
to guess, because if we've already stated that, going off of, let's say, Larry's assumptions, and I agree with them, that 95% of people do not have the tools.
Stop right there.
Yep.
That just means to me that 95% of men out there would benefit from this conversation.
Totally.
Now, whether we can probably come up with a handful of reasons we think why that's not the case, right? Like on TV, in magazines, on social media, like these kind of conversations don't sell ads typically, right?
Correct.
What sells ads? Conflict, right? What works on reality TV? Conflict. What works in superhero movies? Conflict, right? And so what we're talking about is, we're talking about the unsexy, healthy conflict, right? Where you have that argument with her, but you say, why do we argue every time we're trying to communicate? What's not happening? I love that, by the way, Larry.
Yeah, it's a great script.
You're not engaging in the, well, I always do this and you never do this, right? But it's trying to let her be heard, but also trying to intercept this kind of shooting war.
Yeah. Right. And also, Ray, exactly. Be careful not to say, oh, how have I let you down? Thinking that somehow you participated in the challenge they're facing.
I've made that error, dude, in my scripting, where I'm like, there you go again, being disappointed, and she's disappointed again, right? And so, which is,
and then the final is in me.
Yeah, right.
It's ultimately in me.
Right. But Larry, but if I'm going to speak my truth, that is the problem. I like the kind of questions you set up, I phrase the following way: what's wrong with the status quo, right? And so I don't feel respected, I don't feel supported, I feel you're disappointed in me, and I feel like you're endlessly disappointing me. That's my journaling that's going on, right? But then
yes.
So what's the problem with saying I feel like you're endlessly disappointed in me?
Intention. It's easy for that to come across defensively. It's easy for that to come across. Here you are again, disappointed in me.
So it's impossible to make you happy, kind of thing, right? That's probably how she's going to hear it.
So remember, of what comes out of our mouth. They're called words.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we think they make up so much of but we know that they make such a small percentage of what our meaning, that the meaning comes from tone of voice and body language.
Mm-hmm.
If the tone of voice is accusatory, blaming, finding fault, talking about a shortcoming, then all you're going to get is defensiveness or shutdown. You're not going to get any response. If it comes across from the intent of, I want to be a part of an environment where we can both be happy and successful, if that's where you're coming from, and you better get in alignment first before you open your mouth. Because remember, we've shared this before, what Emerson said, who you are speaks so loud I can't hear what you're saying. Mm-hmm. That already said complaint.
Oh, sorry, Larry. But for some reason, I think your internet's going out. Is that the same thing for you, Ray?
While we listen.
Yes, Wes. I'm only hearing like 3 out of 4 words from Larry.
Who's internet?
They're juicy. Like it's still lots to munch on. Like so the like the
Larry, I think it's your internet. Sorry, Ray, to cut you off. Yeah, it's pretty choppy on our side.
We're still getting lots to munch on from you, Larry.
So Ray, in the meantime, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So like, what is wrong with the status quo is the first question. What is the change I'm hoping for is the second question. And what is the relationship I want is the third, right? So like, what is wrong with the status quo is the past. What's the change I'm looking for is the present steps. And what's the relationship I want is the future, right? And what Larry said is like an environment where we both feel loved and supported. Like that is the way to communicate more effectively I feel like you're endlessly disappointed in me, like idea. Right.
Well, now we're just looking for the time frame to wrap it up. I mean, that's what's the next step is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be around someone who's ultimately disappointed in me. How am I going to grow and nurture and develop and think anything positive about myself if everybody I talk to says, boy, you're a loser? So we certainly don't attract another human being and then expect that to be the type of relationship. But if we haven't done what Wes is talking about, established how we want it to be, you know, if in your case, Ray, well, you just don't seem to want to make any money. You just rely on me. I'm always the one contributing. You think this little thing with your art is going to really be anything.
This hobby.
You know, I can feel a lot of animosity coming from you right now, and I can see how this has really upset you. What is it that's really bothering you, honey, about my inability right now to be bringing the type of income in? What is it that you're upset about? You follow me? You've got to extract yourself from being attacked and make sure that it's a battle you want to be involved in to begin with. You're assuming here's the money again. I've got this fanciful dream, but it's not really fanciful. It's really where my passion lies, and you got this little yin yang going on. And so now I'm being attacked again because there's a part of you that wants to contribute financially. And that hasn't happened to the degree you want it to yet. So it kind of opens up just a little fissure in your psyche.
Insecurity. Yeah.
Well, we're all insecure. I mean, that's just a given. Know that everybody comes from that. But now it's like, okay, with our flaws, with our weaknesses, what it ultimately is it about that would make such a difference? We still have light over our head. We're still warm. And are you not happy with what you're doing any longer? No, I really like my job. Well, what is it? Well, Ray, you know what it is? It's just, you just don't seem to have any time for me. You just always seem to be preoccupied. Now there's something that you can work with. It's not about the money. Money is a symptom of something else. And we've been brought up to fix the symptom, not find out what the cause is. We've been
Right.
brought up to do that, to quickly react with, oh, I just figured out, I know what it is. It's the damn money again.
Right.
So, for whatever
Larry?
that's worth.
Yeah, Larry, outstanding. And
Yes, sir.
so for guys like me and Phil who are trying to take our careers to the next level or trying to transition into something, and there's lots of guys on this call who are in some version of that journey, right? Trying to up their skills, improve their job, change job, get a job, whatever there is. Like, is there a conversation we should be having or could be having before that process or during that process with our intimate partner to kind of like short circuit some of these kind of negative feelings?
Now, what is your wife's name?
Yep.
Okay. If I was bringing in a lot of money, would there be anything that I'm currently doing that would still be bothering you? And not, excuse me for saying still, would there be anything that I'm currently doing that is not creating an environment where you feel loved and valued? So now what have you done? You've overcome the money objection, right? You've taken that off the table. And now you're asking for something that you have the opportunity to grow about. You didn't wear your hair the way you wear it. Well, you know what? I really kind of like the hair the way it is. Is that going to be a deal breaker for us? Or you shave your head, or you do whatever. Yeah, more like a Larry haircut, whatever happens. Did I break up again?
No, we got the salon discussion like crystal clear.
But yeah, it is breaking up a little, Larry, just so you have some feedback on your side.
Wes,
Sorry, Ray, good.
Wes, how about you? Like, do you have any thoughts on like a conversation that we can have with our intimate partners to kind of intercept what will potentially be frustration, like that, boiling over at some point?
Well, so what comes up for me when we talk about this is kind of like the whole study of economics is that the whole study of economics assumes a rational actor on the other side. But then we get into behavioral economics, which says that's not the case. Like even the supply and demand does not work in the case of luxury goods, for example. So and if we are starting off with the premise that 95% of the people are deficient, like what does Ray do when the complaints are coming fast and furious and every single day? And it's like, hey, I received the feedback yesterday. I haven't been able to make $1 million between 16 hours ago and right now. So I don't know why we're revisiting this right now. Like there's got to be some sort of like self-work. And if we look at those cognitive distortions and kind of behavioral therapy, like what if the person keeps on saying universals? Like they just won't stop. It's like, look, at some point I feel like you got to say, you have to go and do your homework before you bring this to my table. Or like the relationship is not going to work. So I understand like that as well. But is there a middle ground of saying, hey, the relationship could work if you went and you developed some ground rules for yourselves? Because I think as men, all of us on this call, I think would be willing to say that we've worked on ourselves a reasonable amount, and that if there's a problem that happens in our lives, the people at the front line would be us. So we're going to try to solve that problem or process it before we go and put it onto other people. So by the time it gets to somebody else's table, it's already been filtered a bit versus no filter at all. Ray, I'll throw that over to you. What are your thoughts on that? And then we'll head over to Larry.
Yeah, like if I can and in fact, if I can just kind of like repackage what you said, Wes, like the way I would say it to my intimate partner, or the way I would say it to you as like a more refined version of the problem is like, we're in a situation here where you want me to succeed, I want me to succeed, but I kind of feel like what you're doing right now is like setting me back, right? Like the worrying or complaining or whatever it is, like, and this brings me back to your friend who thinks he's depressed, right? Like, he felt a pang of depression as a result of a tough conversation he had with his intimate partner, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And so he was injured by that conversation, perhaps not depressed, right? So like when these conversations and these heated conversations about a man's ability to be the provider, like Larry said, these really have a way of injuring our self-esteem, right? Or like questioning our manhood, right? And so what I suspect your friend he was injured by something she said, even if what she was kind of like calling out is something that he wants to improve as well, or is trying to improve as well.
Right. Yeah, and Lucas's comment in the chat is great. Is just walk in and express frustration while your significant other is trying to relax. Yeah, like that's kind of what I'm talking about. Is that there needs to be some sort of, well, my hypothesis is that it seems reasonable to establish where there's time and space to not have to deal with conflict, right? Like if it's not an emergency, again, of course, if there's an emergency, you deal with it right then and there. And I know we kind of jump to, okay, on a weekly basis, you can only talk about conflict Tuesday at 7 p.m. to 7:30. That's it. I don't care if it's daily. Okay, every day, here's a check-in. 5 to 6 p.m., check-in. But 7 p.m. and onward, like no conflict. Like that's on you to manage until the next whatever check-in is. I don't care if the check-in is every other hour. But if there is no safe ground, right, then like what's going to force a person like me to do is like, all right, then I'll just go stay at a hotel every once in a while if I want to guarantee myself some like no conflict zone. Larry,
and if not literally a hotel, you can stonewall or disengage.
Yep.
Right, which is not ideal. Yeah.
And Ryan over on the in the chat is saying tabling conflict is an amazing tool. Again, I agree with it. With like what do they say? It's everything in moderation, including moderation, sort of a thing.
Yeah. Well, what we're talking about is healthy conflict, right, Larry?
Yeah.
Yeah, Larry,
yeah.
Your thoughts?
Well, I missed about the last 5 minutes, but I apologize for the internet challenge.
You got that Philadelphia internet, but I know all about that, man.
You're talking to a guy that's had experience with divorce. I have this is my third marriage, and the first two, I believe it just became to the point where, hey, we both had different expectations. We both made a mistake. And I do agree that sometimes there's no resolution. Sometimes there's no talking yourself through this, but there's a better opportunity of being successful at it if when you're in dealing with conflict or you're trying to make things better, you're not trying to get your way. Does not mean you are acquiescing to their way. It simply means that at least you're not the part of the problem now. You are part of the solution, because you're looking to truly find out, is there enough admiration for each other's soul that we want to work our way through some of the, I wouldn't use this term, but they generally end up petty challenges that we're dealing with because somebody's not getting their way. And you know, Diane and I will be 27 years this September. So, you know, even though there were a couple false starts and there were children involved and it's very painful and you wish that you'd gone through some of the things that we're all talking about right now before you got to that, I really probably would not have undone any of it. I think that that's where growth comes from, and that's how we learn is we have to screw up. And we also need to learn from it, though. And even with Ray out there, you know, on his own, kind of pondering what his future is going to be, and if it's, you know, how it's going to all work out, he's really got to keep in mind that he's being fanciful now, and he's imagining, and imagining is how visions are created. And so imagine a world that you truly want to live in. Imagine a relationship, that's bodacious and over the top. I mean, don't settle for less. I learned this from Wes. If you're going to go for it, brother. Don't limit yourself. If you think you can pull off 1 million, why not make it 10? If you think you can be in shape, why not be in great shape? And whatever that, if you think your relationship, how about a great one? But start out realizing that we are bringing an inadequate, not having all the tools individual into any relationship, and we all are. And the so-called experts does not mean that their way is the way. It simply means that it was a way that worked for them. And maybe they have some followers and it worked for them as well. But what works for you? And that's what we find out. That's what experience is all about. That's why we have experiences in our lives, is to find out. And ultimately, remember this. It's not about whether the decision was right or wrong. It's make a decision, then go about making it right or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Love that.
Yeah.
And that's
Larry,
vision.
I also, again, what that made me think of is, yes, 95% of us don't have the tools baked into us, right? Most of us have to.
No, they're baked into us.
Oh, sorry.
Just we're not aware of them because we haven't had them brought to our awareness.
Yes. So we haven't taken them out of the package yet.
Correct.
Right. So 95%
Good
of us haven't taken the tools out of the wrapping yet, and a lot of us have to hit a rock bottom to learn and grow, right? And we talked about that in the 12-step program, right? Like, so in a way, like the status quo for a lot of us, the status quo has to become unmanageable before we unwrap these tools and start using them. And I think that's perfectly okay, right? Like there's nothing defective or flawed in you, me, Wes, if we have to screw something up and learn the value or learn that lesson, In fact, some would say that's the only way we learn anything, right? Is by having something and getting it taken away from us, and then having to earn it back the hard way.
Well, if you think of God as the ultimate truth and call that cosmic consciousness, call that quantum physics, call it whatever you want. So something greater than self. Remember, I've shared this in an earlier show with you guys, is that God gave us everything to be successful except one thing. And remember what that one thing was?
No.
Experience. And if you think about the fact that you weren't born knowing how to take a transmission out of a car, but you had the ability to learn. And so now some people have chosen to learn and they can do it, and other people have chosen not to learn and they pay others to do it. And that's about as simple as you can make it. We all pop out of the womb capable of having the greatest relationships. We can't even imagine them being great enough. That's probably our limitation, is we hold ourselves back because of past experiences. But we certainly have the innate ability to accomplish whatever it is. And that's why it doesn't matter which theologian or guru or Eastern religion you're looking at, is whatever a man can conceive, he can achieve. And we see evidence of that everywhere. So why not in ourselves? We're not born inadequate. Get over that. We may have had some tough times and some rugged experiences to go through. We may be struggling continually and now, but that's part of it. And then when we embrace it and find some joy in it, then it isn't a struggle any longer. It's an adventure and it's exciting. Have you ever gone down a river in an inner tube with some beers and buddies and you're having fun, and then all of a sudden somebody says, "Did you hear that?" And you go, "What?" And it's this kind of sound, and you listen to it and it's starting to get a little louder, and pretty soon it's a roar. And all of a sudden somebody goes, "We're going off a waterfall." All of a sudden everybody's terrified. Well, but how about if you go, "Hey, do you want to go white water rafting?" Wow, really? Yeah. What, well, there's some fives there. Oh my God. Are we going to have a guide? You're looking forward to that roar. And that's life. Have you turned it into, oh my God, we're going to drown. Oh, she's going to leave me. Or I can't get a job. Or is it going to be an adventure where, well, that didn't work. You know, what can I learn from that? And that's what you guys and what you're doing here brings to all of us is let's make it an adventure.
Let's get one step closer.
You're living at your mom's. You're having an adventure. You have an opportunity now to embrace your mom, regardless of what kind of a reality you were brought up in, and let her feel a love she's never felt in her life while you're there. I mean, there's so many opportunities. Embrace them.
Absolutely. Ray,
yes.
final, Larry, so much appreciate it. Ray, final words of wisdom here, my friend.
Dude, again, like, why do I always have to go after Larry, man? Like, I can't top that. I can't top that. Larry, thank you for sharing
you don't need
your wisdom. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. I love you, man. That's my contribution.
Dude,
I love you too, buddy.
Larry, thank you as always. Ray, thank you as always. I am going to keep on going down this rabbit hole of trying to find the perfect structure for relationships. We will see. And the only reason I say that is because this stuff has been studied, and it's respectfully, it's not just it's one person's experience. Like if you look at the Gottmans studied thousands of relationships, so they're trying to uncover those patterns that are workable and not workable.
Amen.
So there's somewhere between. So there's somewhere in the middle. So I'm trying my best to find that. And hopefully we'll have some sort of workable, I hate saying formulas, but I could tell you this, every single relationship book I read, basically almost every chapter I read out of a relationship book, it's like, oh, I wish I would have known that 15 years ago or 10 years ago or 5 years ago. So I'm going to keep on going down this path, and then we will keep on having these spirited discussions because we are on the path of progress. Thank you, my friends. Love you both.
So whether you figure out that formula or not, no more sleepwalking through life. That's for sure.
100%. All right, dude.
Wake up.
Love you guys. Great day. Later.
Love you guys.